Hey, we're here at the Marketer of the Day podcast with Brian J. Esposito, who is the CEO of Diamond Lake Minerals, Inc. Brian is a serial entrepreneur. He's a business leader who was ranked among the world's top 10 CEOs for 2020, 21, 22 in the World CEO Rankings Awards. And Brian has 20 plus years of experience building companies on a global scale across 25 plus unique industries. And he's the founder of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. And this consists of over 110 plus entities. His website is EIE.rocks. And Brian is going to be giving us the secrets of his success, how to build an organization with a wealth of knowledge and experience, how to harness that passion and grow and everything else that we want to do, but sometimes it's easier said than done. So Brian, glad to be speaking with you.
It's great to be here, Robert. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you for showing up. So we introduced you a little bit, but in your own words, what are you all about? What is your passion and your focus?
Yeah, great introduction. That's always humbling to hear what 23 plus years I've accomplished. So at the end of the day, I love to create value. I love creating win-win-win opportunities for all parties involved. That's been my MO since I can remember. What I had to perfect during this journey is ensuring I picked the correct people to work with and aligning with things like, humble, good empathy, great morals, values, and ethics. And when you align with people in those types of characteristics and traits, there's so much great work that you can do because you just want to do great work, and the money and whatever upsides are just a byproduct of that. So that's where we are today. I love building and growing companies. I really love helping founders and startup founders succeed, piggybacking a lot of the mistakes that I made that I can give them some guidance on. I can give them some awareness on what I know what may work, but what for sure I know what won't work. And my life's career has then, like you mentioned, has taken me to take over as CEO of Diamond Lake Minerals. It's a public company, ticker symbols DLMI. And we're bridging the gap there with traditional stocks and financing with the future of digital securities, much like the things that you're seeing a lot around Bitcoin and BlackRock and Larry Fink. We've been in that space, or I've been in that space since the beginning, building these types of technologies inside of our companies and utilizing things like blockchain to show what is the future of commerce, the future of transactions and transparency.
Exciting. And so to help us fully understand Diamond Lake Minerals, like what is the product? If someone says, okay, what's this company do? What's the solution that's presented?
So the company's been around since 1954, Salt Lake City-based company out of Utah. When I took over in August of 2023, I came in with a brand new strategy and structure and vision of the company. So over the last 6 or so months, it has been getting our story out there, which we've gotten tremendous media support and coverage on. And it is showing what we believe is the future of stocks and the future of public companies. What I've structured and going forward into building Diamond Lake Minerals, if any of your listeners or if yourself remember what General Electric was back in the day, it was a parent company of many different industry agnostic subsidiaries that it had within its umbrella. So we're replicating that, much like I've done with my private holdings. So you have a parent Diamond Lake Minerals stock or security and public entity. And then underneath that, you'll have all the industries that we've identified that we want to be in. A lot of them come with the support of some of the iconic advisors that have joined to support our vision and where I'm taking this company. And you have industries like TV, film, media, and music. You have industries like products and consumer goods, hospitality, F&B, gaming. We're going to be very heavy in commercial real estate and utilizing some of the blockchain technologies I referenced and security tokens as a new way to bring liquidity into a massive industry that's dying for liquidity on all these illiquid assets that has paper maturing over the next few years. You're going to be seeing what I believe is a replica of what happened in 2007 and 2008 when you have this giant real estate bubble that starts to collapse and commercial real estate starts to crumble because traditional access to capital dries up, rates get too high. Rents are too high for businesses to succeed and stay. So what happens then is the local economies start to collapse in those towns and cities, and therefore the global economy starts to collapse. With security tokens, and where we're bringing to the market is the ability for anybody around the world to be able to utilize a security token to buy into an asset like a building or a real estate development project or really any real world asset that they never had a chance to buy into before. And that's the structure of the company that now we have created. We've got our story out there, and now going forward, we'll start announcing the businesses that we're going to be involved in.
Exciting. And that seems to be the way that so much is going, is the democratization and the saying, well, we know that there's kind of these harsh realities of life. We know that there are these cycles, like the real estate cycle. So how do we solve that problem? How do we make that better? And so you say that you're sort of like a GE sort of company with all these kind of sub industries. Is there one of these sub companies that really like excites you, that's really kind of like up and coming or worth talking about?
Well, a lot of my private holdings are around advancements in technologies like wireless communication, wireless connectivity. So that I'm always excited about, having these parallel networks that allow us to connect, communicate, and locate one another, which is extremely important in the event that there's no cell coverage, you have a blackout, or you're in a second or third world country without the traditional infrastructure that we're used to as a first world country. So I've been very heavy in those initiatives and projects and technology. So that's very important to where we're building and where we're going. Also, things like being able to finance and spin up water treatment plants in a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. Again, utilizing the unique financial structures and access to capital that we're going to be going out to the market with. So I do believe that having access to water is a basic human right, and it's a commodity that most people don't realize it can and is very scarce. And I do believe it'll trade like oil in our lifetime if we don't start to put things in place to help be able to always have access to clean, fresh drinking water for all life, not just human beings. And anything alive needs that. And then in music, we do a lot in the music industry. Always love creating products and technologies and opportunities to help artists be able to create a career, help them break out, help them really build the most amount of value for their IP. So again, if you look at some of the offerings and the technologies that we have and that we're working with and utilizing, I believe we have a suite of tools and new ways for artists and content creators to really be able to monetize their IP correctly and be able to go out to the world and even raise capital off creating new IP and creating new music and getting it distributed based on the utilization of blockchain and security token offerings for those artists.
So many innovations, right? And so what drives your decision making? Because you've created all these cool things, but you always need to say no to so much. And a lot of what you've mentioned here is sort of philanthropic, right? You mentioned about these things like helping out these artists. You mentioned about the clean drinking water. So does that factor in just saying, well, how do I help the world, or what can I kind of do that has a built-in positive PR message? Like, what's your thought process behind what opportunities to say no to versus saying yes to?
Well, we got to be we're industry agnostic, so it's whatever will add value. If you're looking at just DLMI as a public company, my job is to always ensure that we're working on things that bring value to our shareholders and our future security token holders. So everything that we do has to spin off some positive effect for a return or a boost in our balance sheet or really successful, profitable margins. Even though there's initiatives there that may sound philanthropic, and we have partnerships with Evertree, for example, on helping with deforestation, all these business concept that I'm talking about, there's business models inside of that. They're utilizing our technology. There's transaction fees. There's the ability to utilize our systems to be able to go out and do a security token offering and help build that business or help build that artist or help go and finance and build that water treatment plant. So there's financial mechanisms in there that ensure that we have an earning capability into that, and we have profitable earnings coming in that we can then utilize that to continue to grow our company, acquire new companies, and share those returns and rewards with our shareholders. So everything we're not a non-for-profit, but I do believe in order to make a difference, you have to do good business. You have to create resources and access to resources to have an impact. And, the end consumer, the end user, humanity as a whole are much more educated as to looking at ingredients into products, looking at what is the byproduct of certain processes that may do harm to a local region or our health concerns. There's so much access to information out there. So people are actually very vocal and they're very active into who are these companies, what are they doing, what is their core beliefs. So it's always important that as a public company, DLMI, and even all my private holdings, that there's always some sort of a positive impact in addition to just the business that we have to be involved in. And that's, that's part of what we're creating. And that's really important to me as a leader, that we do well with the reach, the access, and the resources that we have, and not just strictly focus on capitalism.
I love it. So you have that positive impact as part of the soup, as part of the equation. And you mentioned there a little bit about your leadership. So like what led you to being here? Like you mentioned that this company has been around since the 50s, but now you're kind of taking on so much and appearing on podcasts and having to solve all sorts of problems. So how did this opportunity present itself to you?
With my private holdings, Esposito Intellectual Enterprises, I'm always being presented with public vehicles. There's different levels of a public vehicle. There's New York Stock Exchange, there's NASDAQ, there's over the counter, there's pink sheets. So there's all these different levels. Much like if you look at it, sports, there's a professional, there's semi-professional, there's minor leagues, there's college, there's high school. So it's similar type of hierarchy when it comes to public entities. So every time I get presented one to see, do I want to bring any of my companies in here, any of the companies that I work with into that public vehicle, they're always a mess. They're riddled with billions and billions of shares. There's all kinds of control issues. There's all kinds of maybe debt, or it's just a lot of unknowns, and it's not usually worth getting involved. Then I get presented with this one. I meet the principal, Michael Reynolds, who kept us alive over the last 7 years. My kind of guy. Is an older gentleman, knows how to build businesses. He took some substantial companies public during his tenure as a broker dealer, investment banking network out of Beverly Hills. No ding on his record, so always did the right thing, always operated within the guidelines of rules and regulations. And when we spoke and talked about my business philosophies and how I believe a public company should be run, aligned very well with his. And to me, it's timeless business philosophies, but a lot of companies don't operate like that anymore. They just talk about unrealistic valuations. They try to go out and raise money on unsustainable earnings or unsustainable forecast of earnings. And that's, to me, that's what causes volatility, and that's what causes corrections. When something is priced so high, at some point the market's like, this company is not worth that. Therefore, they start to sell, and therefore their stock starts to plummet. And if that happens across many different industries, you have a giant correction in the markets. But you don't have that if you have companies that are consistently earning. You have companies that have a very strong balance sheet with a really strong, loyal shareholder base. And then the shareholder base gets rewarded with a portion of the earnings that come in, and you create a Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock situation where you have generational wealth created. You have people that will only sell that share because somebody else is willing to pay them a lot of money for it. Or you have somebody that never wants to sell that share and they want to pass it down from kid to kid to kid because they're constantly getting their dividend and their juice from that security. That's what I'm building. And whether it takes me a year, it takes me the next 20 years, this is what I want to build here. This is my life's work here. And I want to bring back to the markets this really new, amazing, unique vehicle, which I think all public companies will replicate. Traditional financing, building stocks, utilizing that security as is, with a blend of now the future of digital securities and security tokens, which we've created that hybrid approach.
Exciting. And you always think about the art and the science factors that go into what you want and what you don't want, right? Like, are the numbers good? Are the financials good? But then also you use your imagination and your dreams. You think about the future. You think about the people and what their values are. And it's cool to just hear about your thought process a little bit here. And so as far as you personally and what motivates you and what you've achieved, do you have anything to share about your own personal development or like goal setting or time management? Like, what do you think makes you work really well as a person who has focus, who's accomplished these things? Like, what do you have that is really unique that not everyone else has?
I like that I have the ability to be self-aware, where I can look inward and be man enough to know that I was wrong in a situation, I was right in a situation. What do I need to work on in the situation? A lot of people need business coaches to kind of shake them and have them see that, or mentors or psychiatrists, whatever works for you. Everybody's different, so no judgment. But for me, I have this daily constant check-in with myself if I'm acting in accordance to the level that I want to act in, and that the level of integrity that I want to consistently have when other people want to work with me or deal with me or do business with me. You have to have trust. You have to have vulnerability. You have to have a connection with anybody, whether it's a customer, it's an investor, it's speaking with you and talking about my story. There has to be some sort of a connection there where it's genuine and that it feels right. So I'm grateful that I've always had those capabilities. I'm even more grateful that life has handed me all kinds of hell that I've had to deal with and go through and overcome, and not become jaded or bitter or angry. So I'm very pleased with me being able to overcome those, even though there were moments that were quick where I could have felt those emotions. I shook it off as fast as I could, and I just kept moving forward. So for me, it's being self-aware, being consistent, and trying my best every new day to wake up a little bit smarter and wiser than the day before. And if you continuously continue to do that, I think you start to evolve. I think you start to really see life a lot more clearer. You start to understand what it's important and what's not important, and you really have to sometimes make very difficult decisions and cut toxic people out of your life. And sometimes it could be somebody very close to you. It could be a best friend, a family member. It could be a work colleague forever. It could be a business partner. But if you have any angst in your day or nervousness, or if you're unsettled and it's not like an internal thing, it's actually being triggered from other people, you have to identify that and you have to cut that out like a cancer. And maybe it's a timeout for a little bit and maybe you can rectify the situation, the relationship. But I've unfortunately I've been around long enough where toxic people are toxic people, and the day that you can wake up and shake them out of your life, you can really start to live a really happy, healthy, mentally healthy life. And when you're at that level, the world is your oyster. You can do anything. It's all the time wasted and energy wasted on dealing with nonsense or stresses or uh, drama, I guess is the best word. There's no really net gain. It's just there to cause chaos and confusion and distraction in what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And that's creating some purpose and some self-worth. And it doesn't have to be money. It just has to be went through the day and you actually created some sort of value, some sort of net benefit for yourself. And unfortunately, you can't do that if you're constantly dealing with outside situations that are negative.
That is deep and powerful, and it seems like there's a lot to figure out, a lot of nuance to that sort of thing, this self-awareness idea, and identifying the toxic people that maybe you've been tolerating that are wasting your time, and then needing to make these sorts of hard decisions that in the long run help you out, but in the short run might be awkward or might be painful, and just doing these things that have to be done. There's a lot to think about there. And so you mentioned a little bit in there about some kind of past failures. So do you have a quick story for us? Because failures are always fun to talk about, right? Because
Yeah.
you can look back and laugh. But is there a quick past failure story that you feel like sharing with us?
Oh, there's a lot of them. The most dramatic one, which I like to reference for multiple reasons, is in 2016. I was in a drunk driver hit me head on in a car collision in Nashville, and I shouldn't have walked away from that experience. It was a bad accident. At that time, I had about 30 or so companies in my holdings, working every day like a dog, like normal. But I was no physical harm, thankfully, but I was dealing with a lot of post concussion issues, and I was ripped away from my daily routine. And when I was ripped away from my daily routine as a businessman with all of these responsibilities and leverage that was out there, my world started to fall apart. And ultimately, after a year of that and trying to get back to a normal mental state where I could do 2 + 2 quickly, it took me a while to even do that. So this is the type of delays I was dealing with. And my brain is my best tool. I can remember everything. I remember who I met in an airport 10 years ago. And if I meet somebody today, I remember to connect them and build value. That's what I do. But when I couldn't do that, and I was completely exposed and leveraged with all of my businesses, that's what I've always done. Just keep things moving and just keep pushing forward and building. I couldn't do that. And then the people I had around me were not the right people. It's not on them. That was on me for putting them there. So I had no real support system around me. If I was the engine. I was the engine. I was the steering wheel. I was the tires. I was the door. I was the seat. I was everything in the car. So it was disappointing to not have any support. It was disappointing that when things started to fall apart, people that I helped tremendously, brands and companies that I helped tremendously, all turned their back on me, and there was no help to be found. I sat there and, very, very awkward moment, because I built what in my mind a really mini amazing empire. I thought I had a great machine, and I thought I had wonderful people around me. I didn't. So a couple of things happened. I had to completely re-strategize. What's my value proposition to the world? How do I come back from this? I didn't file for bankruptcy. I was extensively in debt. I said, well, I'm going to pay everything back. Why would I file? I'm just gonna figure it out. Whether it takes me a day or it takes me the rest of my life, I'm going to clean this up. And so what ultimately happened, I learned that most of my career, I didn't properly value myself. And because of that, I didn't really have the right model. I didn't have not really. I did not have the right model in the business that I was building, in this ecosystem that I was building. It wasn't right. So you fast forward to today, and some of the things we talked about is where I'm at. I'm so grateful that woman hit me, because first and foremost, she could have killed somebody. So I'm glad she hit me, and she didn't wreck a family or hurt somebody else. And I needed my entire world to completely collapse and fall apart so I could rebuild. I couldn't piecemeal and fix how it was. It could have stayed like that, and maybe it would have been a nice thing forever, but it wasn't the right model. I was a slave to that world. It wasn't properly valuing me first and foremost. So again, it all depends how you can react to some of life's hardest moments. Some people get very angry and bitter and jaded, and I get it. I mean, but I knew I was, again, self-aware enough. If I did that, there was no way in hell I'd come back. So I couldn't have those demons too, on top of financial responsibilities and getting debt cleared up and rebuilding. I couldn't deal with hate in the world at the same time. Plus, if I turned into that person, I knew nobody would want to work with me. It's part of me doing what I do, is being a light for things and being a great energy around things and people wanting to work with me. So if I close that off, then I'd be living in the streets somewhere. So it wasn't a quick story, but it was the most darkest part of my life that was a complete failure based on 15, 16 years of my life of building something that wasn't right, and then having it completely destroyed, and then having to figure out how to rebuild it back.
Sometimes we do need a shakeup like that for things to get bad, or to even reveal themselves how they are. It sucks to be stuck in kind of that middle land where it could be better, but you don't know how. And sometimes, like you said, you need to just like tear it down and build it back up, and then be the best person, or be a better person every day, so that way you can step up and show up for the people that need you, that you need to lead, and who can help you change the world. And so, as we're getting near the end of our conversation here, Brian, is there a hidden question that I'm not asking you? Is there something that you wish Robert Plank would ask you? And can we pretend I asked you that, and then you can answer it for me?
That's a great way to make me interview myself. I love it.
Yeah.
This is a recent epiphany, I guess. So if you were to ask me, what great advice would you give an entrepreneur? So I don't know if you want to ask me that, or if you want me to ask myself that, or did
Sure.
we just ask?
Yeah. What great advice would you give an entrepreneur?
Robert, that's a damn fine question you just threw at me. So I'm trying to perfect the way I word it, because every time I answer it's a little bit different, but it's the inner circle concept. We all have an inner circle that we were born into, we grew into. There was, initially your family, and then school, classmates, and then maybe if you played a sport, or if you're in the play, like, you just build this inner circle of people as your life progresses. If you're an entrepreneur, there's a really good chance that most of those people, including your family and loved ones, and then your future spouse, there's a good chance they didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household. There's a good chance they didn't understand how we're wired, which is sometimes it's a psychotic wiring, because we just want to go out and build. So when you have the mindset that we have as entrepreneurs, you need to find a way to create two inner circles. And it's very easy to do now, because you can create your professional inner circle of people that you meet on your journey, that it's strictly work and career and the industry that you want to be into. And using things like LinkedIn, you can find great advisors that you want to work with or people you just connect with through social media platforms. As an entrepreneur, we all go through moments where we think a deal is going to get done. We thought we got a deal done. We thought we had a transaction. We thought we got a new customer. We thought. You can't share any of that while it's in motion with your first inner circle. Because if they're not an entrepreneur mindset, which again, 99% of them aren't, they're not going to understand that that deal's not done yet. They're not going to understand there might be a delay or maybe somebody was lying to you. The usual processes of being an entrepreneur. It's never just simple as A and B. It's just there's a lot of maneuvering behind everything. You can only share with that first inner circle, even if you choose to do so, closed transactions, something that actually closed, wire in the bank, deals done, sign a contract, new customer. Because if you don't, and you shared something too soon, they're going to be asking you about it. And then you're going to start feeling anxiety and frustration. And then you're like, oh my God, my whole day I felt this at work. And then you're going to not even want to go home, or you're not going to want to deal with that first inner circle. You're going to feel like a failure. So there's got to be a really strong wall. First inner circle, keep it light, keep it with, what your similarities are, why you love those people. Keep it just fun and stress-free. If you want to share things, share closed deals. If you're trying to share business stuff, just share it with your second inner circle of people that you create that understand it's not going to be easy. People that you can be, completely vulnerable with and say, God, that deal fell apart. I thought it was going to close. But because you didn't share with that first inner circle, you don't have this extra level of embarrassment or this extra level of stress or anxiety. So I'm still working on articulating that correctly, but create two inner circles, family, friends, loved ones in one bucket, professional people in another, and know what content to share with each one.
That's a great concept. The two inner circles, so that way you have the sounding board, but they also don't conflict. Great advice. And what's the next step here? If someone is listening and they're amazed and wowed at what you shared with us, both personally, professionally, they want to know more about your companies, what you have going on, what's next. What is the logical next step call to action today?
Well, I love when people reach out to me. So definitely find me on socials, Brian J. Esposito, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, TikTok. I don't use Facebook. And I love using LinkedIn. We share all of our stories and experiences there. And the corporate website's eie.rocks. That's the primary family holding company. And then Diamond Lake Minerals is the public company, DLMI, and that's diamondlakeminerals.com. Again, I'm always accessible. Would love when people reach out to me if they want to hear about what we're involved in, if they have any questions, if they want to get involved in some of the things that we're doing. It's always humbling to get inbound messages, and I respect people's time that send me something, so I respect it in reverse, and I always respond back to everybody.
Wonderful. And I love that dedication, that work ethic. I read some quote this morning that was something like, consistency is the rarest aspect of humans, because it's so easy for the randomness to creep in or say we don't feel like it. But that's really cool of you to be responsive on social media, and it works both ways, right? Because you get clarity on your own ideas, but if someone listening to you on this podcast today finds you, they go to their preferred social platform of choice, except for Facebook, of course, because you're not there. But say they're a LinkedIn person, they can just go and find you and friend you and follow you, and that's their kind of first step opting in to find out what you're all about. And if they're listening to this podcast, they like your personality, they like your ideas, and then that's the first step to them, like, just discovering more about you and sending that message. So it's a great thing that pays a lot of benefits, and it goes both ways, right? Because then someone can just be drawn more and more into your world, which is diamondlakeminerals.com and eie.rocks. And we've been speaking with Brian J. Esposito. And as we wind down our conversation here, Brian, do you have any final soundbite? Because you know how this podcasting thing works, right? We chop up the little videos, and it's always good to end on like one last quote or lesson. So does anything pop out in your mind as far as like one final thing to wow us, one final statement?
Yeah, one of my favorites. Anybody can be an overnight success if you wake up the next day a little smarter, wiser, and stronger than you were the day before.
Very nice. Brian J. Esposito, Diamond Lake Minerals, Inc. That's DLMIEIE.rocks. Very wonderful speaking with you, Brian.
You too, Robert. Thanks for the time.
All right, wonderful.